This is Capital Clarity, a channel where we explain how money works clearly, simply, honestly. Most people think inflation simply means prices going up, but inflation is not really about prices. It is about the value of money going down. And understanding this changes how you save, invest, and plan your life. Because inflation quietly taxes everyone who does not understand it. Let us break this down clearly. Inflation happens when the purchasing power of money decreases. If something costs $10 today and $12 next year, most people say prices increased. But in reality, your $10 became weaker. Money itself lost strength. That is the key shift. Inflation is not about expensive groceries. It is about weaker currency. There are three main forces that drive inflation. First, demand pull inflation. This happens when demand for goods increases faster than supply. If more people want houses but there are not enough houses, prices rise. If more people want cars but production is limited, prices rise. Second, cost push inflation. If the cost of producing goods increases, companies raise prices. If energy becomes more expensive, transportation costs rise. If wages rise quickly, companies increase prices to maintain profits. Third, monetary inflation. This is the most powerful and misunderstood one. When central banks increase the money supply rapidly, more money chases the same amount of goods. And when money increases faster than production, value drops. This is where the real story begins. Most countries have a central bank. In the United States, it is the Federal Reserve. In Europe, it is the European Central Bank. These institutions control monetary policy. They adjust interest rates. They influence lending. They expand or contract the money supply. When economies slow down, central banks often lower interest rates. Lower rates encourage borrowing. More borrowing increases spending. More spending increases demand. And sometimes this leads to inflation. In extreme cases, central banks inject massive amounts of liquidity into the system. This increases the supply of money dramatically. If production does not rise equally, prices respond upward. Here is something important. Governments do not aim for zero inflation. Most aim for around 2% per year. Why? Because mild inflation encourages spending and investing. If money slowly loses value, people are less likely to hoard it. They invest. They consume. They move money into productive assets. But inflation also benefits governments in another way. It reduces the real value of debt. If a government owes $1 trillion and inflation rises, that debt becomes easier to repay in real terms. Inflation quietly shrinks debt burdens. This is why inflation is sometimes called a hidden tax. Inflation affects everyone differently. If your salary does not rise as fast as inflation, you become poorer in real terms. If your savings sit in cash earning low interest, inflation slowly erodes them. If inflation averages 3% per year, your purchasing power halves roughly every 24 years. That means money sitting idle is losing power silently. This is why understanding inflation changes how you think about savings. Cash is safe in nominal terms, but risky in real terms. Many people feel richer when their salary increases. But if wages increase by 5% and inflation is 4%, real growth is only 1%. Most people never calculate real income. They focus on nominal numbers. Inflation hides reality. You must subtract inflation to know your true progress. Some assets historically perform better during inflation. Stocks represent ownership in companies. If companies can raise prices, revenues increase. Real estate often rises with inflation because construction costs increase and rents adjust. Commodities like gold are sometimes viewed as inflation hedges. But no asset is perfect. The key is owning productive assets, not idle cash. Inflation rewards ownership. It punishes stagnation. In rare cases, inflation spirals out of control. History has seen extreme examples. Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela. When money creation accelerates uncontrollably and confidence collapses, currency loses value rapidly. Prices double in days or weeks. Savings disappear. Economies destabilize. Hyperinflation is not normal, but it shows what happens when money supply grows without restraint. Inflation also changes behavior. When people expect prices to rise, they spend faster. This increases demand, which pushes prices even higher. Inflation can become self-reinforcing. Expectations matter. This is why central banks communicate carefully. If people trust that inflation will remain stable, behavior stays stable. Confidence supports currency value. Interest rates are the main tool used to fight inflation. When inflation rises, central banks raise rates. Higher rates make borrowing more expensive. Loans decrease. Spending slows. Demand cools. And inflation gradually declines. But raising rates has consequences. It can slow economic growth, increase unemployment, reduce investment. Fighting inflation is always a balance. Inflation transfers wealth. Debtors benefit. Savers lose. If you owe money at fixed interest, inflation reduces the real burden of that debt. If you hold large cash reserves, inflation reduces purchasing power. This is why understanding debt and inflation together is crucial. The wealthy often hold assets and productive investments. The middle class often holds cash savings. Over long periods, inflation widens this gap. Inflation does not hit all goods equally. Housing may rise faster than electronics. Food may rise faster than clothing. Each household experiences inflation differently. Official numbers are averages. Your personal inflation rate may be high. This is why financial awareness matters. The goal is not panic. The goal is positioning. Maintain emergency cash for safety, but invest long-term savings in productive assets. Increase income through skills. Focus on ownership. Think in real returns, not nominal returns. If your investment earns 8% and inflation is 3%, real growth is 5%. This mindset shift changes everything. Inflation is not mysterious. It is not random. It is a predictable economic force. Money supply, production, confidence, interest rates, all connected. If you understand inflation, you stop fearing it. You adapt to it. You use it. Because money is not just numbers. It is power. And when its value changes, behavior changes. That is how inflation actually works.